The last section that we covered was sleep, distraction, absorption in things material, etc. A little noisy. So I found something very nice which I wanted to share with you, and that has to do with a teaching that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives in Harinam Chintamani. What's Harinam Chintamani? Harinam Chintamani is one of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's 100 books. And it's a book specifically on chanting of the holy name and the touchstone of the holy name that helps one get to the goal of life, the chanting of the holy name. Someone just sent me a very nice text that was, I'll just read it to you because it was so nice. The day after Srila Prabhupada's samadhi was completed in Vrindavan, Bibi Govinda Maharaj was walking around. He had a recording device. He happened to meet Kinchana Das Babaji, who he looks up to like anything because he's absorbed in the holy name. Kinchana Das Babaji saw that Bibi Govinda Maharaj had a recording device. He asked us that. He said it's a recording. So immediately, without any musical instruments, he started singing, wanted him to record it. He sang Gauravastakam and then chanted Hare Krishna, in honor of Srila Prabhupada from the previous day's event. And then he stopped after 20 minutes of singing. There's something I wanted to tell you. I'm old now, and I have a lot of life experience. I can honestly tell you from experience that there has never been such a great acharya as your spiritual teacher. Because he was a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta. Kinchana Das Babaji was one of Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples, one of Prabhupada's godbrothers. There has never been any priest in history who could perform such miracles as your spiritual teacher. He paused and he looked at me deeply and said, you know why? Because in history, there was no greater servant of the holy name of Sri Krishna than your spiritual teacher. For your spiritual teacher possessed such absolute understanding of the holy name of Sri Krishna and such absolute faith in the holy name of Sri Krishna that he himself spread the holy name of Lord Sri Krishna unto the whole world. That's why he is the greatest acharya in history. And it's not something light. It's, the person speaking was recognized by Bhaktisiddhanta as the only disciple who he gave full permission to take Babaji initiation, and he just absorbed himself, immersed himself in chanting. And he loved chanting, and he loved giving the taste from chanting to others. And he's looking up to he didn't say the same thing of his spiritual master he said about Srila Prabhupada. I mean, Prabhupada gives all credit to his spiritual master. Anyway, it's a nice glorification. Here's another nice Prabhupada story. I like Prabhupada stories. There were a group of devotees at different times making interviews of persons who had some association with Prabhupada, and one of those persons interviewed was a Babaji who had residence at the Radha Damodar temple. And he had residence at the Radha Damodar temple for many, many years. When he was interviewed, he was 79 years old. I forget his name, something Das Babaji. And he, when he was interviewed, he said, I'm 79 years old. I was born at Radhakund. My whole life I've been a Pujari and have experienced many sadhus, but I've never experienced a sadhu like this one. Prabhupada. That when he came, everything here was deteriorated. Now it's not. Now it's built up and all kinds of things. But it was unclean. It was muddy. The rooms that Prabhupada had moved in, he didn't say this, but the rooms that Prabhupada moved in were not fit for habitation. He had to spend some time and some money making them habitable. So it wasn't an inviting situation, in short. And he said many times at 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning, I would hear someone crying very loudly, calling out, hey Rupa, hey Sanatana, hey Guru Maharaj, please make it possible for me to fulfill this order I've been given. And calling the holy name very loudly, as you said. When I went, because he was in one of those rooms, it was kind of like an upper area looking down on the courtyard of the Radha Damodar courtyard, and the back area where his Rupa Goswami's Samadhi is. But one night, it was a full moon night, so I could see, because there's no lights. And you could see, there was Swamiji on his hands and knees, cleaning the floor, sweeping the floor in front of Rupa Goswami's Samadhi, calling out like this, begging for Rupa Goswami's mercy that he could be successful in fulfilling the order of Bhakti Siddhanta. I mean, we're not likely to be in that mood, but that was the mood that Prabhupada was in. And in order to become successful, because our topic is the stages of bhakti, and the essence of our elevation in bhakti is the holy name. Of course, many other forms of service, but chanting of the holy name is super essential. Chanting of the holy name. So this Harinam Chintamani by Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a book just on chanting. And he's describing in the book, same thing that we heard about, Sadhu Sangha and Bhajana Kriya and Anartana Vritti, the stages of chanting. So when he discusses this term Vikshepa, which we heard yesterday, maybe you'll remember, distraction. Here's what he writes in Harinam Chintamani about distraction. Very nice. From distraction, all types of inattention are born. This fault resides in attraction for women or men, in the case of women, and wealth. Attraction for material success or victory. Desire for position, and the cheating propensity. If one has attraction in any one of these categories, one will naturally be attentive to the holy name. Do you have to do this? You have to do it? Can you leave it? Yeah, thank you. So there's the reference. It was from yesterday's discussion. It was one of the final residual stages of anarthas, something unwanted within the heart, before reaching the next stage. And the next stage is the stage of ruchi, the fifth shower of nectar, the attainment of taste. So one of the definitions or one of the meanings of the word ruchi is taste. So here's our chart, celebrated Creeper of Bhakti chart. And up here is the Nishtha stage. We heard in the Nishtha stage, there's Nishtha that arises from Bhakti itself, Nishtha that may arise from characteristics that are semblances of Bhakti itself, like good character and charity and so forth and so on. And then comes ruchi. So ruchi is at the top. You'll see two things. One on the left, the other on the right. The lettering is pretty small, so I'm going to have to get really close to my computer and see what it says. Taste dependent upon external excellence. That's on the left side. Vastu, Vaishyishcha, Apekshani, or where taste is not dependent on the excellence of the elements. One of the stories about Bhakti Siddhanta that I heard is there was a particular devotee that he liked to hear his kirtan. And some of the devotees were very surprised that he liked to hear his kirtan because he was one of those devotees that doesn't sing on key. There are some devotees that like to sing. It's funny, or it's characteristic. Those that like to sing and sing off key, they sing really loudly. Have you noticed? I mean, I won't go into it, but it happens. And this particular devotee would sing so devotionally that was the appreciation that Bhakti Siddhanta had. And not always, of course, but at least I was told. I don't know the name. I just have been told the circumstance. He liked his kirtan because of his devotion. Now, Akinshana Das Babaji, he also liked his kirtan, and he did sing on key. There's recordings of this singing, and it's really, really wonderful. Really, really wonderful. Of course, most of us like when there's nice instrumentation and nice vocals and chorus and vocal accompaniment and all the nice things. It's really, really nice when there's all these nice things. However, that's a type of taste that there is a type of attainment of taste that isn't dependent upon the excellence of the elements. Here's from Madhurya Kadambini. This is not going to be a long class. It's going to be a medium class. So be ready for an abrupt ending when we go along, because it's not going to be a long one. Ruchi means taste. He writes, when the devotee takes into his heart the golden medallion of bhakti, now naturally when you speak about higher stages of bhakti, poetry or poetic expression is needed because it's so far up there that we don't have anything to directly experience it. So we use, or authors use, metaphors. A golden medallion of bhakti taken into the heart, shining brilliantly by the fire of steady practice plus propelled by its own energy. then ruchi appears. So just a little review. There's a type of bhakti that one, in the association of very elevated persons, I can become very encouraged and enthusiastic and do lots of enthusiastic service. But it's riding on the strength of someone else's enthusiasm and faith. And then if that person isn't around, or that day will come for all of you, when the older devotees who are inspiring you and many, many, many other devotees in ISKCON aren't around, what's going to happen? And so there's a stage of bhakti where it's self-propelled, that is from bhakti itself. So there's the cleansing to get to the stage where it's bhakti is more on the spontaneous stage than simply in this, I can be enthusiastic as long as I have enthusiastic company or sadhu sangha that inspires me. But there's a stage where one is to share and inspire others, and the strength to share and inspire others comes from within. So here, propelled by its own energy and shining brilliantly by the fire of steady practice. That's the ruchi stage. But then ruchi appears. And what are the symptoms of ruchi? One considers everything except hearing and chanting be a waste of time. Two, no fatigue when hearing and chanting. Three, great attachment for hearing and chanting. And then an example is given, the jaundice example. Supposing one doesn't have that taste, but they have faith that the holy name is very sweet. And I like, Durdaiva Idrisha Mahajani Nanaraga, as Lord Chaitanya teaches in Shikshastika too. I don't have any attraction. Now, of course, he has attraction, but he's speaking as if he doesn't. So it's like the patient that has jaundice and sugar candy is recommended. I don't know if anybody has had jaundice. I had jaundice once upon a time, maybe 45 years ago. And it's true. Sugar, raw candy, mystery, tastes bad. I didn't go and get jaundice just so I could check it out. It so happened, so I was very curious, sure enough. Bitter. I mean, it's have anyone had neem? Many of you here have had neem. It's very bitter. And it's good. It's in some parts, in Bengal in particular, it's the first thing you eat. I mean, first thing they serve it with meals is that which is bitter. It helps the fire digestion increase. And after some time, people that do that regularly, they get a taste for it and they like it. They like it strong, bitter. Of course, knowing that it's good for you, good for your digestion at least. So, even if one does not have the taste, one should continue to hear and chant. Why? Because by practice, that purification will come, and then in course of time, taste may or will come. He writes, the jiva's heart infected with ignorance and other kleshas. What does klesha mean? Misery, suffering. So ignorance is the cause of suffering, and klesha is the suffering itself. Becomes cured by the medicine of repeated hearing, chanting, and other devotional methods. Taste restores gradually. So this, in other words, ruchi is natural. That's the healthy state. And the other is not healthy. So, that's sleep, feeling fatigued when chanting, as opposed to feeling enlivened and more enlivened and more enlivened. I just had some discussion with a devotee today. I shared the same quote, Prabhupada quote, being spoken about by Kinchana Das Babaji, and this devotee said, this was really helpful in passing through a real dry spell. Now, is it possible that one who really normally has a taste for the holy name can enter a dry spell? The answer is yes. So if you go through a dry spell, misery loves company, right? So there are lots of people that may have to. I don't know how you feel about Badahari, but I feel Badahari is like a personality of Gulabjamun or something. He's so juicy. You just bump into him, you get juice all over you. He's such a devotee, particularly with kirtan and the holy name. It's not just kirtan, it's japa. So there were a few years in a row that we were having sometimes japa retreats in Gitanagari. We were together, we were staying in the same place together. And the morning after the 64 round day, we're heading to the temple for Mangalarti. I was driving, he was in the passenger seat. And I just asked him how'd it go. He was quiet. And then in a deep voice, he said, it was like a desert. And I almost went off the road because I couldn't believe that that would come from Badahari's heart, like a desert. And it was, so I was quiet, and he said a little more. He said, almost the entire 64 rounds were just so dry, like in the desert. And then he said, in the final rounds, I just accepted it, and all of a sudden it became very sweet again. So if Badahari can go through that, Prabhu's, you're in good company, or anyone. So don't worry if if it's not there, it's okay. And if it's there, it's okay. It's just, it's mercy, or it's mercy, varieties of mercy. And in any case, continue with faith. And what will come is that the reality of what the holy name is. So he writes in this chapter 5, 2 types of ruchi. Same, you saw the one on the left or on the right. Dependent on the excellence of the elements and not dependent on the excellence of the elements. The tone of voice and the musicality and the vocal response and so forth and so on. He first then spends a little bit of time on dependent on the excellence of the elements. Kirtan, deity worship, prasadam. Now, excellence in the elements of deity worship are fantastic. I don't know if anyone here is a fan of Radharaman in Vrindavan, but I am. And I know some people that are. From time to time, I send them photos of Radharaman dressed in their dapper best. They have special festivals where it's special this and special color and special crown, special everything. Almost every day of the year. It's like a festival. And the pujaris are really into it, and people that come are really into it. It's really nice. It's really nice. So it's nice to see deities being worshipped and cared for so lovingly. But it's not just the decorations, it's the love and devotion that they have. And if being inspired by deity worship or kirtan or prasadam is depending upon the excellence of the elements that indicates that there's some dosha, abhasa. Abhasa means shadow. Dosha means fault, the shadow of a fault, even in the ruchi stage. However, where it's not dependent upon the excellence of the elements, no more impurity. One laments for his former lack of taste and attraction. I mean, like, in Namastaka, one of the Namastaka verses is where Rupa Goswami is writing about how much nectar is it's elsewhere also in Padyavali, how much nectar are in the two syllables Krishna. This describes his experience of the nectar of the two syllables Krishna. So the lamentation, I'm so unfortunate, I kept the precious jewel of bhakti received from my spiritual master tied in the hem of my cloth. I lick up the bitter tasting, deceitful, profane gossip as if nectar. I become sleepy during katha, but my ears perk up whenever there is vulgar, idle talk. I have stained the assembly of devotees. So, lamentation and regret, or profound regret about one's weakness in the process and the fact of applying oneself to the process of bhakti. So again, metaphor, devotional service is like a dance, and the dance instructor is ruchi. Habhi bodo se din amar. When will that day be ours? At the second stage of ruchi, one has become fixed in seva nishtha, pure unalloyed service to Krishna. So there's preliminary and secondary. Seva nishtha. So that was a quick chapter. Now chapter 6. This is the next stage. What's the next stage? The name of the next stage after ruchi? Asakti. Asakti. There's the chart. Asakti is there at the bottom. It doesn't have a lot of text connected. It just says attachment to Sri Krishna, the object of bhajan. So ruchi is connected to the bhajan, and asakti is attached to the object of bhajan. We'll hear that shortly. And then comes bhava and prema work. That's going to be later. Enchantment of the heart. Nice way of describing asakti. It's an attachment or enchantment. Asakti is attachment for Krishna, which develops when taste for bhajan becomes extremely deep. So we're going further and further and further. You can say up, or you can say deeper and deeper and deeper. Either metaphor is fine. The desire creeper of bhakti bears clusters of buds, heralding the swift appearance of the flowers of bhava and then the fruits of prema. Again, it's metaphors, poetic metaphors to help us get a picture of what's going on. Because you've all seen flowers and then buds of flowers, and then they open and become spectacular. And the buds, this is just the bud stage, clusters of buds. Krishna is the exclusive object of one's devotional activities. So, deity worship, and any form of seva, Vaishnava seva, whatever it is, Rath Yatra, Coming up soon, Krishna Janmashtami, and then Radhastami, and before that, Balaram Appearance Day, coming up very soon. So here's this distinction between Ruchi and Asakti. Ruchi has Bhajan as its main objective. Asakti has the Lord as the main objective. There he is again. So prior to Asakti, there's, signs that you're approaching the stage or someone is approaching the stage. One has to apply effort to counteract desire and fix the mind on the Lord. That's us, for sure. We have to apply effort. We heard it. It was one of the main points of yesterday's discussion. To advance in the Anarjana Vritti stage of bhakti, strong effort over a period of time is essential. Nishtha cannot detect how and when the mind withdraws from spirit. The unsteadiness that sometimes not. When reaching Asakti cannot detect when and how the mind withdraws from matter. It's moving to the spontaneous stage of bhakti. In other words, absorption is automatic, not automatic in the mechanical sense, but spontaneous, probably a better word. No effort is needed. Then he does what he does. He's making a number of statements, and now he's going to supply some shastras to support those statements, which are very nice. Narada Bhakti Sutra. Although devotional service is one, it becomes manifest in 11 forms of attachment. This is all the Asakti topic. Attachment to the Lord's glorious qualities, to his beauty, to worshiping him, to remembering him, to serving him, to reciprocating with him as a friend, to caring for him as a parent, to dealing with him as a lover, to surrendering one's whole self to him, to being absorbed in thought of him, and to experiencing separation from him. The last is the supreme attachment, which is counterintuitive. Supreme attachment is experiencing separation. There's lots of things about bhakti life that's mysterious. This is one of them, for sure. And worldly people have nice devotees. I'll just share one of them because it was a very strong impression I heard. One devotee told me that he has trouble visiting the Potomac Temple because in the Potomac Temple, there's deities of Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman. And from his childhood, in reading Ramayana, he couldn't read the book because there was so much sadness in the book. And so when he saw the deities, he had to run the other way because it was too sad. So I spent quite a bit of time with this nice devotee, explaining it's not quite like that. It's actually the sadness. Here's a little bit of the science of it. From Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we know there's 5 primary, 7 secondary rasas. Yes? Yes. 5 primary, 7 secondary rasas. And according to Rupa Goswami, there are presiding deities of each of those primary and secondary rasas. They're forms of the Lord that are presiding deities. And the presiding deity of the Lord, the Sanskrit word is karuna, but is often translated as sorrow. And karuna means compassion or mercy, but it comes in the form of sorrow, which is puzzling, maybe. But so it's explained extensively by Rupa Goswami in his writings, and particularly in his writings in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, where he's describing the incarnations of the Lord and describing Ramachandra. He's the presiding deity of that secondary rasa. It's just amplification and amplification and amplification and more amplification of the primary rasa through the medium of the secondary rasa, which, or in other words, is ecstatic. The sorrow is a particular type of ecstasy. But to a worldly person, it doesn't look like ecstasy. It looks like sorrow. It looks like, from the material lens, it looks like sorrow, like this. You know, experiencing separation is the supreme attachment. It enhances feelings of attachment. Separation makes the heart grow fonder and sacred. You know, modern poetry. It's true. It's true. I mean, just like this, having you hear these two Prabhupada stories, it means something to you, and it means something even more for his disciples. Of course, everyone here are the Prabhupada's followers, but those that had his association and were closely serving him, and for their life is just dedicated to his service. It has a stirring of the heart effect that enhances the feeling of separation, which enhances the feeling of love. And that may not look like it, and it may not even feel like it, but that's what it is. At least the connoisseurs of rasa can understand it in that way. So just to say it again in summary, we're entering into uncharted waters. We're out at sea in the ocean of bhakti rasa, Sindhu, the ocean of bhakti rasa, and it's amrita, and we don't know exactly what amrita is, because we just know what material happiness and distress is. So the poets, the connoisseurs who have experienced it, they're explaining it to us. So here's another little list of aspects of asakti. We heard about this. There was some discussion on it yesterday. The spiritualization of I and mine, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is a Rasika Bhakta, he certainly knows. It's now complete. Material aspect, that is still a trace, gandha, like a fragrance, it's just a scent, a slight trace. Meditation, very deep. Here's a reference that he makes from Queen Kunti's prayers. You probably will recognize this prayer. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. That's a Sakti. She's just stating what Vishwanath Chakravarti stated, or Vishwanath Chakravarti is stating what she stated. And another nice reference is from 3rd Canto, chapter 29. This is in the Kapila Dev instruction to Devahuti on the chapters about devotional service. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when One's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as, similar metaphor, the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. So that's a very elevated stage. Sometimes, according to what our acharyas describe, one may get a glimpse of what that's like. One may get a glimpse. Or sometimes it's described, Krishna pulls back the curtain. You get a glimpse and the curtain closes. It's startling. And one wants to resume that experience, but it's just dependent upon mercy. So there's no harm in wishing for the experience, but more important in the asakti stage is the person who's the object. The person who's the object. This little boy, you're very distracted. You in the little red t-shirt. And you're doing your best to distract others too. You think it's funny? Do you think you could sit still? Is that possible? You tried. Let's see. Oh, there's the end. So we just covered 2 of the 9 stages of bhakti, ruchi and asakti. And just so that you know, we have another 26 slides left. So there's a lot, he has a lot to say about bhava and prema. There's a lot in our scriptures about bhava and prema because that's the goal. It's really good to have an idea. The more clear idea you have of the goal, the more it's inviting to want to get there. And that's although we're not there, it's nice to have an idea of what there is like. I'll just share a little. When I was a young boy, I remember very clearly asking my parents, what's it like in heaven? And they wanted to know why I was asking that question, because we're supposed to want to go there. So what's it like there? And they didn't have an answer. I got a pat on the head and isn't that cute? Go ahead, some guests would comment, you'd say it, say it. It was embarrassing. I stopped saying it, I stopped asking. I went to the priest didn't give an answer either. I mean, it's not like he didn't have any textbook answer, but he didn't have an answer, even a textbook one. So I stopped asking and got busy doing what you're supposed to do. Be successful, right? And then there's boundaries of what's successful and this and that and the other. And so I got real busy trying to be successful. And then something happened without details of what happened. Then I started asking those questions again. And I got the same blank stare. Or people saying this is the answer, and it was very clear they didn't know. And that's the answer, and very clear that wasn't the answer either, and so forth and so on. And then came Srila Prabhupada and the teachings of artistic succession. And it was easy to understand. So it's not that my parents and the priest and other people, they're bad people. They just didn't have the sound vibration to help awaken that understanding that we've forgotten. And it's something that we already know. So that's the process that we're engaged in by somehow or another. What was the word? You remember with the somehow or other word? Yad Rich Chaya. What does Yad Rich Chaya mean? Somehow or other. You can't point to a material cause. It's mercy. Okay, then why the mercy? Maybe this, maybe this, maybe this. Vishwanath took us through that exercise and rolled out so many things. And the conclusion of those so many things was Krishna has given to the Madhyama devotee the power of attorney to give his mercy, to give him and give his mercy. To the Madhyama, what's a Madhyama? They're just in this intermediate stage of bhakti, but they're enjoined to certain behavior. Give bhakti to innocent people. So we go out and try, give bhakti to innocent people, and sometimes people don't want to receive it. Sometimes they say nasty things. Sometimes. And so we're just in the instrument of this Yad Rich Chaya. And it's Krishna's mercy, Krishna's kindness. So when one gets that good fortune, then the light can start to go on. And when the light goes on, then we can continue further. We can also slacken and go away, and that's okay because there's no loss. But if we keep going faithfully under proper guidance with proper teachings and proper teachers, then we can get to this very incredible stage of asakti, which is healthy, or it's our normal healthy condition. In this world, it's not normal. But in the spiritual world, it's normal. And it's working our way to the spiritual world. It's one of the teachings of our I was going to say our acharyas, but I'll even be specific. One of the teachings of Raghunath Das Goswami is to enter into that spiritual arena. We need the mercy of these very, very qualified Vaishnavas, the Goswamis, and those who are under the care of those Goswamis, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was under the care of Narottam Das Thakur, who was under the care of Jiva Goswami, who was under the care of Rupa Goswami, who was under the care of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So through those great personalities, we can get not just a glimpse, we can get a glimpse, but we can get entrance into and transfer our attachments to the spiritual realm. Transfer our attachments to the eternal abode of Krishna, his Dham, his associates, his loving dealings, and live in that realm, consciousness-wise, even when moving about this realm. And if you don't want to go there, it's okay. You can stay wherever you want to stay. And if you want to go there, we're being given the mercy to go as close to that position as you wish. And there's unsteadiness in getting there, and then there's the taste, and then there's attachment, and then keep going. That's our bhakti life, if we so desire. The path is there. It's a pretty good travel advertisement. But it's not just marketing, it's giving the gift. And through our acharyas, the gift of Krishna Prema is being given by Lord Chaitanya. He is the giver of the gift. Krishna Prema Pradayate through his representatives. Okay, so any discussion on our topic here? Try to keep questions related to the topic. That's best.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your presentation. What were the two words? It was asakti and what's the one with
Ruchi.
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 I know you had the two. If you could go back to the two definitions of Ruchi.
Here it is. What?
Asakti is 3 slides later.
You're mumbling.
Asakti definition
She wants a definition of ruchi.
Well, both.
Oh, both. Well, there's a definition of ruchi.
I wasn't here for as much. So basically my question was like, how are Ruchi and asakti related to each other? And my second question is what is.
What's the first question, one at a time?
I'll just ask one question, he said. How are Ruchi and asakti related to each other?
Okay. The relation is they're related to the creeper of bhakti. That's how they're related. Is the creeper of bhakti relates them, both of them. And one is attachment to bhajan, and the other is attachment to the object of bhajan.
You have one without the other?
Yes. Yes. Some persons may like, and in the less mature stage, they find a happiness, a delight in the heart, transcendental happiness in engaging in katayan shashamam nityam tushanti charamanti cha. They enjoy discussing the topics and hearing the topics and chanting and, conducting katha about Hari Katha. And a more mature stage is the asakti stage, where the affinity is not just for the activity of discussion or sound or in hearing and chanting, but it's the object. It gets more focused on. So your second question was, is it possible to have one without the other? Yes. So it's a greater focus in the second one. The first one leads to the second one. Here they're related, but one is less mature, the other is more mature. Specific to the person. The qualities, the activities, the beauty, etc. of the person. In the language of Rupa Goswami, all of those things I just mentioned, they're stimulations of ecstatic love. Ecstatic love is bhava. The stimulations of ecstatic love are those things. The qualities of Krishna, the loving exchanges of Krishna, the dress of Krishna, the movements of Krishna's eyes, the movements of the eyes of the devotees of Krishna, how they're dressed, the flower ornaments that they have and they offer to Krishna, and so forth and so on. These are stimulations of ecstatic love. It's the details of the person, the supreme person, and his intimate associates. It's not the elements themselves, it's the person. And the very transcendentally sweet details of the person, including and starting with even the sound of the name. Okay.
Mm.
Over here. It's a pretty elevated subject, so there may not be lots of discussion. Go ahead.
Mhm. Once you talk about like how we can get mercy from the Acharya, so I was thinking, is prayer the only way to track the mercy of our previous Acharya in those moments? Is prayer?
You want to know the only way? There's not the only way.
If there are other ways, I would like to know what are the ways.
In addition to prayers, what are some other ways you want to know?
How to track the mercy of the Holy Spirit.
They gave gifts, and try your best not just to like say yes, but try to enter into the mystery of those gifts that they've given. And then, sit back and feel what that gift that they've given is doing, can do and is doing. The sound vibration is the medium, but then there's details and details of that sound vibration. And the gift that they're giving is Krishna Prema, and there's details and details. So that the refinement of your appreciation of that which they're given is how to best associate with them. Now, we don't have recorded kirtans by these great acharyas. We have recorded writings. So they're giving their gift in that way. And depends upon the individual, but one of the things that is common to appreciate, and I appreciate, is how there's diversity amongst our great acharyas and how they relish the topics differently. I mean, something that I spoke a little bit about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. My appreciation is amongst our acharyas, he's not only deep and profound, he's a rasika bhakta. He sees through that lens and reveals things because he sees through that lens that other acharyas may not emphasize so much. And he doesn't often conceal it, he reveals it. The inner feelings of different devotees as they're speaking. And one of the ways it's done is after a verse, for example, then there's a statement by the person who's making that statement in the verse. And then it leads to a discussion of the topic, and further to its appreciation of what they're saying and what it means to them, and then how that may strike the person who's hearing it from them. It's how they churn topics of Krishna. And through churning the topics of Krishna, reveal not just information and facts and sequences and things like that, but it's the mood of love of those persons, and how that mood of love is impacting the life and the hearts of others, and the spiritual world is being opened up by these personalities that on our own most likely we wouldn't understand or experience, but they're sharing that. So reading their writings certainly helps to experience their love. Primarily, for our society of devotees, the writings of Srila Prabhupada are primary, because what Srila Prabhupada has done largely is taken the writings of the previous acharyas and kind of pablamized them. he hasn't changed anything. He just made it accessible and very simple and reachable. And then by that, having that assimilation process go on for quite some time, as one goes on to read writings of our previous acharyas a little bit more, then there's this appreciation of how Prabhupada has done what he's done. It's something like, you wiggle something over here, and then you watch something over there wiggle, and you see how it's connected. Of course, Prabhupada has his own realizations, and he shares things according to his own heart and his own realizations. But largely, because the service that he was doing was passing on to others what was passed on to him, he just pablamizes the teachings of our previous acharyas. That's my word. I don't know if anybody else uses that word, but it's how I appreciate what he's done. Baby pablum is so digestible that it's just like pureed essences of wholesomeness in baby pablum. And Prabhupada has done that in his Bhaktivedanta Purports. But he didn't tiptoe around. He shared things very directly. But he did it in such a way. I mean, one of the things, for example, one of the things I remember very clearly is when Prabhupada came out with Krishna book, there was a big hue and cry because Prabhupada had said so many times, don't go to 10th canto, read the first 9 cantos before going, and before he even finished canto 7, he's going to canto 10, Krishna book. So the question was why? And the answer given was, I don't know how long I'll live, and I want people to be able to have access to the 10th canto message properly understood. So it's a summary study. And then he explained, summary study means I can do what I want. Of course, what do what I want means make it simple. That's what Nectar Devotion was. It's right, it's Rupa Goswami's teaching, but made very simple. So that simple people can understand. Very elevated teaching, but it's understandable. And then he said, if you don't understand it, read it again. And after reading it again, if you still don't understand it, read it again. And you read it again and read it again, and gradually you start to understand. That was his instruction. This is to new people. I mean, I remember when Nectar Devotion came out, it was 1970, the summer of 1970. That was early in the Hare Krishna movement. And he had us have a 3rd class every day. Morning, Bhagavatam. Evening, Bhagavad Gita. 3rd class after lunch or before lunch. Nectar Devotion every day, every day, every day. These are new people, 1970. But he wanted us to know so that we would be, taken away by misinformation and misunderstandings. He wanted us to know. So that's back to the question, how do we have access to these personalities? Start with Prabhupada's books because he gives it. And then, of course, in time when reading their writings, how they approach the topic of Krishna Katha, we get some understanding of their personality, and we get some of their realizations that we wouldn't get just from reading the verse.
Also trying to understand their literature will get more attached to them. So that's how we get mercy from them.
I don't get the question. You want to know how does mercy come?
Yeah, I was just trying to.
When you speak, you move your hand, and the microphone moves when you move your hand.
I'm trying to say about like appreciating or reading their books, we become more attached to the Goswamis. Like that we attract the Goswami mercy. This is the right mercy.
Yeah, yeah, but it grows. You know, it grows. Grows. There's books written about them, so on their appearance days, read about them, etc. Oh, you're on. You're good.
Did you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. Good. Um,
your voice is clear. Her voice, I lose it. I don't know what happens. She moves her hand when she talks. Go ahead.
I feel like this, these lecture series provide some kind of map. Provide a map
Yes,
about what the students have to
yes,
into the, to just attain bhakti.
yeah,
Attain through devotion. And my feeling is that it's help me get some clarifications and also help me understand better my own psyche in the practice.
mm, mm,
What I'm thinking about is something from a more broad level is this analysis provided by traditional methods from Madhurya is, like you said, is an extension of Rupa Goswami's
yes,
verse, one verse.
yes,
And but he provides such a deep, immense amount of details.
yes,
And these analytical model, these details, they are from the scriptures, although we not necessarily know which scriptures they're from. Is that,
mm-hmm,
is that right?
mm-hmm,
And I'm thinking, this is not necessarily the only model to look at the development of bhakti. Is that
well, it depends on what you mean by that. But can you look at development of the bhakti with different terminologies? Yes,
maybe like different systems of analysis?
yes,
Maybe
yes,
now we have 9, maybe another model we have 6.
yes, yes,
Um,
yes, yes, very much like that.
And on the other hand, I'm thinking this specific model, because it talks about how the different stages could become a pure devotee, pure bhakti. Does it also applies to attainment of other, for example, we talk about becoming pure devotee. Does this model also apply to, say, for example, become a mathematician, a musician, politician, a businessman, something like that?
Yes and no. It came out in the discussion about, for example, the example you gave, many of the values that from this morning class are very similar to the values in Chinese culture, but there's something that's quite different that's missing. So same, it can apply, but there's something else that's quite different that's missing in these other examples that you gave. A musician, or a mathematician, or a businessman, or something. You know, the bhakti element is and the object of the bhakti element is missing.
So the process could be
process is the same.
For example, in the initial stage, we got some shutdown, some interest in playing, say, piano. And then you come to the Sangha.
Okay.
Associate with those people.
Okay. In that sense, yes. In that sense, yes.
Mhm.
Let me say back the yes in a different way. Prabhupada to Professor Kotovsky, we do the, what is the difference between what you do and what we do? You have a leader, your leader is Lenin, our leader is Krishna, we both need a leaders. So what's the difference? You chose Lenin and I've chosen Krishna, but we're doing the same thing. So it's, it's something similar. There's steps and stages of unfolding of knowledge of how to be a good communist or how to be a good piano musician. And, you get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and very subtle and very refined and so forth. But there's steps, but there's something quite different. Material and spiritual difference. The dimension is, so this is a reflection of that, and so there's some similarities. Yes, similarities. But not yeah, the foundation is different. And the goal is also, one can have love for music, or one can have love for communism, or one can have love for mathematics, or one can have love for something. That's not what real love is. There's similarity. The reflection of an object is similar to the object that it's a reflection. Are we doing anything? Anyone else? Or are we done? You have something.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I see Amritananda's smiling
Yeah.
face with his hand up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance for Krishna Prabhupada.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you for the class, Maharaj. My question is related to the different stages that you have so nicely explained, from faith to prema. Now, what we understand, Maharaj, is that for a sadhaka, there is the ABCD, A for association, books, B for books, chanting, and D is diet and deity worship. Now, this all are so that we can develop discipline and steadily progress.
Are there different models, and you just gave us a different model? That's okay. I'm making a joke of your ABC.
Okay. I heard this in one of the classes, Maharaj.
Okay.
So Maharaj, the prema is something spontaneous, whereas what we sadhakas are doing is, so to say, regimented and even
Regulative.
like regulative, correct? Sorry, regulative, that's a better word. So Maharaj, as we progress, and I like that definition of ruchi which you had given, that fire of steady practice, plus on its own accord, on its own energy, that is what is propelling us further. So is it at some stage, this practice, I shouldn't say redundant, because I can understand the ABCD, but the deity worship, the personal form, so that we develop attachment. But at a certain stage, when we get there, does deity service continue? Or is it something like a rocket? You have the initial booster stages and that drops off, and then it's carrying on with like Ruchi has its own energy. How does that work, Maharaj?
Absolutely. Two things in response. These are now looking at our predecessor acharyas. Raghunath Das Goswami, as you know, it is said about him that his vratas, his regulations, were like lines in stone. So he was at the topmost stage the topmost stage. He's our acharya for the topmost stage of bhakti. And he can follow regulations like lines in the stone.
Mm.
Sanatana Goswami, same thing. Rupa Goswami, same thing. So it continues. Now, is there variety way up there in the elevated Vaishnava realm? Yes. Yes. That may mean, for example, that their exchange with their deity may become more intimate. But as it becomes more intimate, it doesn't drop or abandon the regulative purposes to become spontaneous at the heart level,
Mm.
but regulative on the external level, because they're acharyas, they're setting an example for others. There are exceptions, of course, but that's the norm.
Got it.
Most advanced deity worship, discussing, that the activities that a sadhaka may do, they do. But the consciousness experience at the heart level is altogether something else than the sadhaka knows.
Mm.
Does that address your question?
Yes, Maharaj, very well. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Feeling of separation. So if the practitioner one feels like the separation, and the another practitioner who doesn't feel that separation, so is that means due to ignorance or due to complacence? So what would be the other side factors?
Are you using the word salvation?
No, complacent, complacent,
Complacency.
yes,
So you want to know about complacency. Is there such a thing as complacency
yeah.
in an elevated Vaishnava? That's what you want to know?
Yeah, is that due to ignorance or
Oh.
due to complacence?
Is what due to ignorance or complacency?
Lacking of that separation feeling.
Lacking of separation feeling. Okay. Well, the lacking of separation is preceded by attachment. You can't, in other words, without attachment to something, how are you going to feel separation from that something?
So that means one who meditates more only means in and out, one who meditates more will feel that feeling of separation. Is that correct understanding?
I'm not sure what you're struggling with understanding.
So
You understand what he's struggling? He's confirming.
yeah, is that
But the specific topic, which your question is right on topic. The specific topic is attachment. And the attachment is very specific also. It's the person. And then so feelings of separation from a person is possible when there's attachment to the person. So now, if your question is, if you're not feeling that separation, is it due to complacency?
is
Or,
it
no, not necessarily due to complacency, if you haven't really gotten to the point of attachment yet.
so that means one has not reached to that point.
Yes. 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 I mean, for example, it's said that when the spiritual master departs, one should cry, but that's like a should. And I could tell you, you don't need to be wound up and told that's what you're supposed to do. When there's attachment, you cry. When there's separation. because of attachment. Then there's feelings of separation. Now, supposing somebody, Prabhupada's disciple was not so attached to Prabhupada. They were official disciples somewhere along the way. They became an initiated disciple, but they weren't so dedicated to him and serving him and his mission and everything that he was about. And then they knew that Prabhupada had left. They're not going to feel those same feelings of separation. Although there's something official there, it's not at the heart level of attachment, and therefore the feelings of separation aren't going to be the same. Then it should. Okay. Okay, I think we're done. Do you have something online? Something else online? No?
not-
You have
one small clarification. We spoke about the devotional service is like a dance with Ruchi as an instructor.
Yeah, isn't that a nice example?
Yeah. People got,
Nice, it's a nice metaphor. It's nice to meditate on that metaphor.
yeah, also, at the same time, I would like to have this reconciliation. Ruchi is where you do not have anything else other than chanting and hearing. Or there's no fatigue when you do your chanting and hearing. Those, like you gave an example of jaundice and all. So this devotional service, when you do, why only for the hearing and chanting? What about the activities we do?
Like deity worship and et cetera, et cetera. The other 6 processes of bhakti.
So why was it not mentioned? That's fine.
That's a nice question. Well, one answer to that question, not the only one, but one answer is the others are implied because they follow. Or say same thing. Deity worship without hearing and chanting isn't proper deity worship. Why? Because the deity likes hearing and chanting, so it's part of deity worship that after, or some part of the deity worship, they're hearing songs or messages or glorification of the personality, Bhadat, Kirtan, something, for the pleasure of the deity. And that it's incomplete without it. So it's implied. There's this term that I learned. Apalaksha. It's a term that it's in relation to. Let's see if I can find it. I'll see. I'll just. In Madhurya Kadambini, there's a Sanskrit phrase where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is describing Ninda, Sadhu Ninda, and he says there are multiple other terms that are so connected to Sadhu Ninda that you just say Ninda and it implies the others because they're so interconnected. So it's Apa Lakshana, no, Upa Lakshana. Upa means near, Upa Lakshana. So you just say Ninda and it implies so many other things because their characteristics that are so close to it. It is implied by the one term. So it's a long explanation. Same thing with, in relation to your question. You see the connection? Okay. It's a little bit like, how Sanskrit works or verses work or sutras work. They're maybe tight, compact little statements And then those that know Sanskrit or know the Siddhanta of the teaching, they can unpack the sutra and then put it back into the sutra. And so the sutra says many things, or a verse may say many things, or a message may say, the sound vibration may in its own accord have many meanings, but those meanings are all connected to the one core meaning. So therefore I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but their root words, dhatu, and from the dhatu comes the grammatical declensions of things, but they have the same, if there's the same root, then they're related to one another. A little bit like the earlier question was the relationship between ruchi and asakti. It's just stages of the same thing. And that this one is a more mature stage and therefore more focused on the person than the activities connected to the person. Which tells a lot about where the train is going. The train is going to the person. So there's mention of, back to your question, there's mention of hearing and chanting, and it's implied there's other things that are along with the hearing and chanting because they're so intimately connected. Naturally.
Is it okay to call that chanting is the like a source for is the
source?
chanting? Yeah,
It's a seed,
it's a seed, yeah, so that's right.
and from the seed comes everything. Okay, thank you very much, Prabhupada.
Thank you.
Thank you.